Welcome to What the Pod. I go by the name of DJ Tracy Tree, your auntie's favorite DJ, and now your fairy pod mother. Welcome to What the Pod. What the Pod is a podcast that recommends new shows for you to listen to. Thank you so much for joining me this Wednesday, and let's jump right into today's show. Podcasters, here is something interesting that I found. It says that Stephen Goldstein writes about visualizing your podcast audience. Now, I regularly visualize for other things that I have goals in, but I've never sat down and actually visualized my podcast audience that's listening to this podcast while they're listening to the podcast, if that makes sense. Like visualizing what my audience is doing while they're listening to my podcast. And I think that's a pretty good practice to maybe start, because I get about a couple hundred listens on my daily episode. And to some that could feel small, or at times that can feel small. But if you've ever spoken to 200 people all at one time, that's a pretty big deal. So actually visualizing your audience as real people that, you know, would amass in a group, and like the energy that you would feel from that is probably a good practice to give you some motivation for your podcast. You doing that thing. So that was a little inspiration. Let's jump into today's show. Today, I'm giving you 3 podcasts that immediately drew me in by their titles, and I'm checking these shows out today. The first podcast is called My Therapist Ghosted Me. I need the story from this, because how left field does your therapy session have to go in order for your therapist to feel the need to ghost you? The title alone hooked me in. I need to hear more about the story. Check out My Therapist Ghosted Me today. Now, this second podcast that drew me in is a comedy that covers conspiracies, true crime, paranormal, pretty much all things mysterious. And the name of this podcast is Drinking the Koolaid. I'm checking out the episode on out-of-body experiences and astral projections. Now, this episode is a bit long, so you might want to check it out when you got some time. Check out the Drinking the Koolaid podcast with me today. And the last podcast that I'm checking out today that caught me by the name is Frugalprenuer. Are you talking about telling me how to start and run my business for less money? Because absolutely. Now, y'all, I was a teenage kidpreneur. All right. I still have my notebook from when I was a kid, actually, with my business ideas in it. And it seems like my tribe is listening to this podcast. So check out Frugalprenuer with me today, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to What the Pod. If you liked any of my podcast picks, then share my show with your friends and let me know what you think on TikTok at DJ Tracy Treece. That's DJ TRICEY. As always, click the link in the show notes to follow me on Spotify and listen to these podcasts with me. I'll see y'all tomorrow, where I'll be giving you 3 more podcasts for you to listen to.